You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome into this Friday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane, and you can find this podcast 5 days a week wherever you get your podcast, Monday through Friday. We're doing post-game shows right now because the Tennessee Volunteers are in the NCAA tournament, so tons and tons of content coming your way. Big thank you guys for continued support on YouTube. We're almost to 1,000. The goal now is to get there by the end of this weekend, so continue on that path. Thank you guys so much for your continued work there. I do radio in Knoxville, Tennessee at 99.1 The Sports Animal. I write for the rival site covering the University of Tennessee. That's Volquest.com. If you're new to the show, thanks so much. Hope you enjoy it. Pull up a chair and hang out with us here. What I want to do here today is I want to bring on my good buddy, Ben McKee, and he is live from Indianapolis at the time of this recording, as we are recording this at about, 6:30, 7 o'clock here on a Thursday evening. Ben from Volquest, my cohort over there, the Swain events. That's a whole nother story right now. But for right now, let's what's going on, man? Hey, fun times covering Tennessee and a dominating win in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and you and I haven't even talked about that whole other thing just yet, which is pretty funny because we talk constantly all day, every day. But yeah, it's going good, going good here in Indy. Big Blue Nation. The doors just opened up 6:14 on my watch, and 15 minutes ago they opened up the doors, and the first session with Tennessee's over, and the second session about to begin here in an hour or so. And Kentucky's got game one, so Big Blue Nation's flooding in, but. A really nice win for Tennessee earlier today, just flat-out dominating performance any way you slice it. I'm sure you've got a bunch of questions, but just a terrific defensive performance after making some adjustments, and the offense was tremendous all game long.
Yeah, I mean, it really was, and we'll certainly talk about everything going on in our lives and the transition and everything here coming up because it is exciting. But for right now, Tennessee did exactly – what it was supposed to do. It's a 3 seed going up against a 14 seed. Now, last year, if that's any indication, it's never a gimme. It's March Madness for a reason. But what I love in this game, 60% from the field, 58% from three. And it was just, Tennessee dominating a lesser opponent, 5 players in double figures. Kennedy Chandler didn't even have to, really do an awful lot, right? I mean, he had 5 assists, 5 helpers. I mean, he's gotten double figures himself, but the story of the day, of course, James continues on. Fulkerson, great off the bench. Vescovy had a really, really nice day. Just an all-around solid offensive performance.
Absolutely. And I couldn't help but think during that first half, Eric, who in the world is going to beat Tennessee if Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovy shoot the way that they did? And it just wasn't them. And it was really John Fulkerson that got him going early. Funny that the three-point shooting was kind of the story of the game, but I want to say over the first 10 minutes, I don't know the exact stat, but I want to say they had taken only like 4 threes. They were 0 for 4, and they weren't really attempting threes, so they really got it inside to John Fulkerson, and he was able to have his most efficient offensive outing in quite some time. Just a tremendous amount of production there early on after Urosh got off to a slow start. He just did not look good today. Rick Barnes was kind of wondering if he got hit early in the game because he was struggling to get up and down the floor. So they went to Fulke early, and Fulke was the man offensively. That's the John Fulkerson that these coaches have been begging to get consistently. And he got the offense going. Not that it needed to get going. It's just he got it going right off the jump. And I think that really opened up things from the perimeter. And again, it was just a flawless offensive performance, which no better time to have a flawless offensive performance in the first round of the NCAA tournament, regardless of the opponent.
This is the same venue that Tennessee was upset first round last year against Oregon State. Those older guys, Vescovy, Josiah Jordan-James, John Fulkerson, a lot of these guys on the team right now, remember that, experience that. I think it was Triple J, correct me if I'm wrong, that said, hey, we were hoping we would be back here, right, to kind of avenge that setting loss, I guess, of what you can say. But, I mean, no doubt about it. This team just looks, poised like it's on a mission, I guess. And I just think it speaks to the veteran leadership that's on the squad that you don't let something minor like that affect, today's play, because it has nothing to do with what's going on with this team right now. Tennessee certainly came out and buried any thought that could have maybe hung them up here today.
Yeah, and the leadership is why Tennessee is where it is right now, right? The change in leadership from when they were embarrassed in Lexington to in Kentucky back in January, and the just complete 180 that the leadership has done since then, holding each other accountable. If you follow Tennessee, it's been spoken about ad nauseum. You've heard about it at length at this point. It's well documented, but it carried over into the NCAA tournament. It led to an SEC title for the first time in 43 years, and it carried over here to Indianapolis today, where Tennessee was ready to go from the jump. And it's an opportunity this weekend not only to make a Sweet 16 and do the thing that any team wants to accomplish any time of the year, but they can also make up for last year. It's a do-over of sorts. And just listening to those guys talk earlier in the week, you felt bad for what they had to go through last year. Rick Barnes talking about the hotel being surrounded by a chain link fence when they rolled up last year. And Josiah talks about being restricted to your room and you don't really see your teammates and you can only come out of your room when it's time to practice and team meetings and when it's time to play. And it obviously did not go well. And Rick Barnes talks now the chain link fence isn't around the same hotel anymore. The hotel's been renovated. So just really a great opportunity for Tennessee Week to make up for last year on top of trying to accomplish some new goals within this year. And the leadership has allowed that to get off to a great start because they did not skip a beat from winning the SEC tournament on Sunday to tipping off here on Thursday afternoon.
Awesome stuff. Ben, hang out. We'll come back and we'll bring you on here for more conversation. It's been McKee, more from him here in just a moment. But I want to talk to you about Built Bar. We're in the month of March right now. 17 grams of protein, the healthy, safe alternative to that of a candy bar, right? Built Bar has got really only around 130 calories compared to the standard candy bar. It's got about 240 calories, but it's a protein bar. 17 grams of protein. And it's covered in 100% chocolate. It looks like a candy bar. It tastes like a candy bar, but it's not. It is a protein bar filled with tons and tons and tons of different flavors. If they believe that some flavor combination would work, would taste good, they're going to try to come up with it. They got cookies and cream, mint brownie, chocolate, coconuts, raspberry, cherry, all the likes and more. And you can find all that and a whole lot more by visiting Built.com. Go to Built.com right now and type in the promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your whole order at Built.com. Again, promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. That is at Built.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube and listening to it on all the audio platforms available. We got tons of content here this weekend. We did a Thursday show. We did a Thursday podcast, post-game podcast after the show yesterday. Here on a Friday, we're doing our normal programming. We are going to have a post-game show on Saturday as well, as Tennessee will then square off against Michigan. But looking back, 88-56, the final score against Longwood on Thursday afternoon. Going to bring back on our good buddy Ben McKee of the Swain event and Volquest.com. Ben, the scene in Indianapolis. I know right now, the time of this recording, it's kind of a crossover. They're about to get the night session going. But how much orange was in town today?
A nice contingent, given the fact that it's a Thursday. Spring break's going on, so maybe that impacts attendance as well as a whole lot of people already had plans in place. Right now, as I'm sure people can hear, there's a lot of Kentucky fans strolling in after, I guess some of them watched Tennessee's win, but Tennessee sided the arena. I mean, it was full of Tennessee orange. It was a nice pocket of Tennessee orange. It was kind of hard for me to tell the full scope of how much of a Tennessee presence there was, because the majority of the fans were sitting behind my back from where I was facing the court. But behind the Tennessee bench, which I could see in front of me from my seat, there was a ton of orange on that side of the floor and kind of in that corner where the band and the bench was. And, I mean, that's what we expect, right? Tennessee fans are some of the best in the country. And it was a good turnout given that it was 2:45 on a Thursday afternoon, 5 hours from Knoxville, short notice from it being announced on Sunday night, spring break, people working, so on and so forth. I really think on Saturday against Michigan, it's going to be a top-notch atmosphere. There were a lot of Michigan fans early on in the day for that first game prior to Tennessee, a lot of Michigan fans, and it got real loud, but also a lot of room for Tennessee to fill in those gaps and make it a terrific environment on Saturday.
I was going to say, I think the environment's going to be top-notch on Saturday, round of 32. You win that one, you're going on to the Sweet 16. And then from there, potentially, Rick Barnes said post-game when they asked about Michigan, he said, I don't really know. Our assistant coach has scouted Michigan's first game earlier today, but, honestly, I would never disrespect the opponent, Longwood, by overlooking them right now. So, he's not going to be looking at Villanova, not going to be looking at Arizona, but, that's who's going to be sitting there waiting on Tennessee potentially, likely. But Michigan erased a 15-point first-half deficit, came to tackle Colorado State 75-63, and the play of backup point guard Frankie Collins was really impressive. First start of the season, 31 minutes, 14 points. He had 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Michigan has been, kind of an embarrassment a lot of times this year. Obviously, the incident with Juwan Howard, but Michigan takes down Colorado State and will be Tennessee's next opponent. And watching a little bit of that game, what are some, and what you know about Michigan, what are going to be some of the biggest challenges for Tennessee on Saturday?
The post play, that's first and foremost. And obviously a lot of things will go into the game. You can't turn the basketball over. The defense is going to have to force turnovers as well. You can't go cold shooting the basketball. Maybe not go 8 for 13 in the first half like you did against Longwood. That was kind of an anomaly. And I don't know the exact stat, but I believe the three-point shooting today was a program record in the NCAA tournament. So you're not going to replicate that. Tennessee's going to come back down to life a little bit, but you do need to continue to make shots, obviously. So a lot goes into this game, but to me, at the top of the board, big, bold, capitalized letters, it's the post play. Hunter Dickinson, Moussa Diabate. I mean, Tennessee's going to have its hands full. And Moussa, he got in foul trouble today early, I believe, and that can be an issue for him at times. So sounds like a good matchup for John Fulkerson. And look, he's someone that will be at the top of the scouting report as well. But to me, it's all Hunter Dickinson in that post play there for Michigan. I knew he was a big guy, Eric, but just seeing him in person courtside today, that dude is a freaking mammoth. He is an absolute hoss out there, and Tennessee's going to have its hands full. I talked earlier about Uros maybe not playing too well, and that kind of being out of the ordinary, and he's just seemed frustrated all day long, had to be calmed down during a timeout after what Rick Barnes said. He blew 2 defensive coverages. He's not going to be able to do that against Michigan, and there's not a post player on Tennessee's roster that I have sole confidence in them getting the job done on their own. They don't have a Grant Williams type. It's going to have to be a group effort, just like it was against Walker Kessler, just like it was against Oscar Shibwe. Jonas Adu didn't play until the very end against Longwood. Going to have to play against Michigan because his length can be an issue. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield continues to impress. He's going to have to chip in as well. Uro's going to have to perform better. And then obviously John Fulkerson is going to have to play well as well. So it's going to have to be a group effort. And if they can not get dominated in the paint, then they should be okay, assuming something else doesn't just flat out go wrong. But to me, I'm circling the post. They've got to slow down Hunter Dickinson and Moussa Diabate as well.
Hunter Dickinson, 7'1" center, 260 pounds. I say coming into the weekend, I thought Tennessee maybe matched up better with Colorado State. I don't know if that's how you feel, but I thought the harder matchup, for the reasons you kind of painted right there, would have been the Michigan matchup. And I'm glad you brought up Jonas Adu. His numbers have been decreasing tremendously, after coming on post the Olivier Kumwa injury and really being a bright spot. His minutes have been decreasing very, very much. And now I do think that that's because of the production of Brandon Huntley-Hatfield. But Adu, you mentioned only a couple of minutes towards the end of the ball game. Is there anything there? Is it just the play of Brandon Huntley-Hatfield and the improved play of Uros and John that have kind of put his minutes to the side a little bit?
Well, I do think he's at the bottom of that totem pole, but not necessarily in a bad way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Victor Bailey Jr., I don't even want to say Victor Bailey Jr. Justin Powell is at the bottom of the totem pole for the guards, and that's because Rick doesn't have a ton of confidence in him, and that's because of his play. And look, Jonas is a true freshman as well, and Rick doesn't have a ton of confidence in him just yet because of how young he is. But it's two different things for me. He's played well when he's been in there. It's just that he's a true freshman. So today, with him being at the bottom of that totem pole and being behind Urosh, being behind Brandon, being behind John, I think Folky and Brandon were playing well. And although Urosh didn't give you much, Folky and Brandon were getting the job done. So you didn't need to incorporate another post player. You also didn't need to incorporate another post player because Longwood is so small. The smallest team in the tournament, which is funny considering their name is Longwood, but they are a very short team. And you could have gotten away, and they did get away with playing Josiah at the 4, defending the 5. So you didn't need as many post players as you will need against Michigan. I can guarantee you that his number, like it was against Walker Kessler, like it was against Oscar Sheboy, it'll be called early and maybe often against Hunter Dickinson on Saturday.
All right, so, I mean, when you're looking back at this Longwood game, there's really not much to recap. Point blank, the better team won. The better team did exactly what it was supposed to do. But you talked about John Fulkerson earlier in the show, and, Folky, this is the guy that I think Tennessee fans still know that you can get every now and again. Probably know that you're never going to get it consistently, but, I mean, he's at the end of the rope now. Just, his next loss will be his last game with the University of Tennessee or, whatever. Is it for Tennessee to make a run, not only just to the second weekend, but maybe the third weekend? You got to have James playing the way he is. You got to have what you're getting from Kennedy Chandler and, of course, what you're getting from Santiago Vescovi. But do you need that type of Folky, that type of effort to go on, for a 3 or 4 game run for Tennessee to reach that level?
Yes, because in the NCAA tournament, you need everybody playing well and everybody chipping in. But he's not at the top of my list in terms of who has to play well. It's Josiah Jordan-James, just because of how important he is on both sides of the ball. People don't give him enough credit for how great of a defender he is and how important he is on the defensive end, because he is such a great communicator and gets everybody lined up and where they need to be. And then offensively, look at the difference in the offense the last couple of games with him playing out of this world, knocking down shots, which is what he's always been capable of. He's been injury-plagued throughout his career, and that's affected his shot at times, but he's healthy now. He's knocking down shots with a lot of confidence, and he's the guy at the top of my list that has to play well in order for Tennessee to make a deep run. Everybody has to play well. Like I said, this time of year, you can't have your freshman point guards turning the basketball over. You got to have those post players contributing in some way, somehow. But to me, Josiah is the difference between this team just being good and this team being great and beating a Villanova, beating in Arizona, going to a Final Four. He's at the top of that list. But also, look, I mean, Urosh didn't have it today, and Folky had an extra bounce in his step that we have not seen lately. And, it didn't really skip a beat without Urosh. And not that Urosh is a Josiah or a Santi and that level of importance. But when Urosh doesn't have it and Folky doesn't have it, then it puts more pressure on those other guys. So Folky is important. It elevates the ceiling of this team. But I just think, again, the difference between a good Josiah and a bad Josiah is getting bounced by Michigan and making a Final Four run.
Ben, anything else, man? Anything we're missing that we need to touch on following this Longwood win, heading into Michigan on Saturday as Tennessee tries to push through the first weekend onto the Sweet 16?
No, I don't think so. I do think that Michigan's going to be a formidable opponent, and I would be concerned if I'm a Tennessee fan. I think Tennessee will win, and I say concerned in the sense of don't look at their record. Don't look at their record. They have beaten good enough teams to get them into the tournament, or else they would not be here. And the talent has not been an issue at all for Michigan. They are loaded with talent, and they're somewhat playing in their home court. Hopefully Tennessee fans can get up here and not outnumber them, but even the playing field. So it's going to be a really good game and a chance for Tennessee to avenge the loss back under Conzo Martin in the Sweet 16 when Jarnell Stokes was called for a charge when he probably shouldn't have. So that'll be an added storyline to the game as well.
Awesome stuff, Ben. Appreciate you taking some time and hopping on the show. Give those 2 segments. You got tons of work over at Volquest.com. And, of course, at Ben McKee 14 all weekend long, Ben. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Always enjoy being here with you. And I'll get back to mingling amongst Big Blue Nation now.
Take cover, Ben. Appreciate that. Again, that has been McKee, my buddy and my friend Volquest and the Swain events. All right, we'll come back. We'll take on some more notes about Michigan heading into this matchup, what we need to know. But before we get into that, I want to remind you about BetOnline. I read you off. We did a whole segment about some of those funky odds and just really incredible lines and props and all that. I hope you dove in and took part in that because it's a whole lot of fun, and they can go either way on a lot of those. I know I jumped in on a couple of them. I've already cashed a few already today as well, but from day one stuff. So it's that time of the year. College basketball is in full swing, and you can get all, just your normal lines, your props, your mascot lines, all that and more at betonline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for the latest sports betting needs and information. BetOnline remains your best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this year. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering informational needs, including live betting and your favorite Las Vegas casino games. You can head to the website right now and find out more for yourself, or check your mobile device. Learn more about all the action happening right now. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back into Locked On Vols, this Friday edition. I'm Eric Kane, and good stuff there from Ben McKee, taking some time out to not only try to find a spot to join us, but giving us some of that expert analysis, if you want to call it that. I'm just kidding. Tennessee's going to take on Michigan. So want to spend this last segment kind of breaking down what we know about Michigan. You guys know me. I have said on this podcast all week long, I didn't think Michigan should have made the tournament. Michigan made the tournament because of its incredible strength of schedule. We boast about Tennessee's strength of schedule. It's the top 10 SOS in the country at number 8. Well, Michigan is pegged at number 5 in the country per KenPom in its strength of schedule metrics. So I agree with Ben. This is not going to be a pushover whatsoever. I didn't really like the matchup per se for Tennessee Michigan from the get go. I would have much rather see Tennessee match up against Colorado State because I thought it was a little bit better for the Big Orange. But nonetheless, this is the hand you're dealt here, and Tennessee's going to move on. Tennessee's playing good basketball. So who is Michigan? Well, Michigan is 18-14 on the season. As you can see, just barely above 500 play. 11-9 in conference play in the Big Ten. Finished 8th in the Big Ten this year. 8th in the Big Ten. Of course, it's a one-game win streak. That was its 15 points deficit erasing come from behind win over Colorado State on Thursday and the first game in Indianapolis. But prior to that, it was just really hitting that struggle bus. 10-5 at home on the season, 5-7 on the road, 3-2 in neutral site games so far this season. And the Juwan Howard situation, against hitting the Wisconsin assistant coach. I mean, that's what we're going to remember about Michigan this year. Point blank, that's what we're going to remember about Michigan this year. But this is a team that went to the Final Four not long ago, right? And you've got some holdovers, you've got some experience. You're long and lengthy, and you're a front court presence type team. And for Tennessee, I think that's going to be a matchup problem at times. Can Jonas Adu, as Ben was talking about, get more productive minutes off the bench for the University of Tennessee? Can Uros Plavsic not have any defensive lapses and keep Tennessee in this basketball game? Can John Fulkerson continue to play the way that he is playing right now? Can Brandon Huntley-Hatfield continue to, soar through his upward trajectory right now? That's going to be key for Tennessee to get past a team like Michigan that's got a lot of big bodies, that's got a lot of really, really good play in the front court. So looking at recently for Michigan, of course, 75-63 win over Colorado State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It was down 15 in the first half, came back, and ended up taking down, of course, Colorado State by that score of 75-63. Starting point guard is in concussion protocol. We'll have to monitor his status as we go throughout Friday and Saturday morning, but he wasn't even in Indianapolis, so we'll have to see if they can get him back. But it was backup point guard Frankie Collins. I've mentioned a couple of times, 14 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Really, really nice play from Hunter Dickinson, 21 points, 6 rebounds in the front court. You have a couple of other players. Caleb Houston, 13 points, 5 rebounds on Thursday. You had Eli Brooks, in the backcourt, 16 points, 7 rebounds as well. And so, this team is really well-rounded in the NCAA tournament because of that strength of schedule. I still don't think it's a very good team, but that doesn't mean it can't, play up to its potential and beat a really good team at this time of the year. I mean, we see it every single year, right? In the Big Ten tournament, Michigan fell to Indiana in the first round. 74-69 was that final score. Just not a very good end of the season for Michigan. It would win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one. They hadn't won back-to-back games since early February when it won at Penn State by a point and then came back home and upset number 3 Purdue 82-58. So it's got a couple of big wins. It lost on the road at Michigan State by almost 20. It lost on the road by about 15 at Illinois way back in January. Had another top 10 showdown with Michigan State, but that was postponed earlier in the year. But nonetheless, you look at what Michigan's done so far in the season, you're just comparing it to Tennessee. We do this every single matchup. Tennessee in the Ken Palm is 6th. Michigan is, well, that's wrong. I had Michigan here as 11th. That is definitely wrong. So I'll have to go back and check that out. But Tennessee is the 6th ranked team in the Ken Palm. And it's got the 32 ranked offensive efficiency team. It's got the second best defensive efficiency team per the Ken Palm rankings. Michigan's got a really good offensive squad, but not necessarily defense. Michigan is the 29th ranked team per the Ken Palms. I wrote down 11 there because, well, they're an 11th seed and I'm a moron. So offensive efficiency rating, Tennessee's 32nd in the nation. Michigan is 19th. Defensive efficiency rating, Tennessee's 2nd. Michigan is 78th. Strength of schedule, we mentioned this earlier. Tennessee is 8th. Michigan is 5th. In the AP, of course, Michigan is not rated. Tennessee was ranked at number 5 in the last and the final AP poll. Quad 1 wins. Tennessee is 11-7. Every single one of its losses come from quad 1 play. Michigan is only 5-10 in quad 1 matchups. In quad 2 matchups, Tennessee, of course, 5-0. Michigan is only 3-3. Quad 3 matchups, Tennessee's 4-0. Michigan has a loss, 6-1 in quad 3 matchups. And then in quad 4 matchups, Tennessee 6-0 and Michigan is 3-0. The latest net rankings, Tennessee is 8th. Michigan is 34th. So it just goes to show you Tennessee's ranked higher, of course. Tennessee's the better basketball team, but Michigan challenges itself just like Rick Barnes challenges his Tennessee squads year in and year out with a very difficult strength of schedule. And it paid dividends for, Michigan. It got them in the tournament this year, right? And it's paid dividends for Tennessee in the past. Not necessarily this year because it was still stuck on that 3 line, but it has in the past as well. So it's not going to be a gimme whatsoever. It's been pointed out, Tennessee lost a Sweet 16 matchup to Michigan, a couple years ago, trying to avenge that loss in the tournament to get to the Sweet 16, and will likely play at a Villanova squad in the Sweet 16. So Tennessee, a good opening round win over Longwood. It was expected, but now you got to turn the page. You got to move on and have a short-term memory, rest up, ice and stem, get some shots up, and get back at it on Saturday for this matchup against Michigan. So I'm going to look in real time right now. I'm doing all this immediate in real time in my life. I'm doing this all immediately after Tennessee's win over Longwood, so getting ahead. Still no time right now for the Tennessee-Michigan game, but likely that should be one of the first ones, I would imagine, because they played at noon and at 2:45 Eastern time here on a Thursday. So I would imagine that Michigan-Tennessee matchup would be towards the front of the day on Saturday in Indianapolis. All right, that will do it here for a Friday show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Big thanks to Ben McKee for stopping by and talking with us here in a little bit. What you have to look forward to coming up on Saturday, we will do another post-game podcast reacting to Tennessee and Michigan. Hopefully be talking about a Tennessee Volunteers victory and advancing on to the Sweet 16. Guys, stay dialed in, locked into YouTube. Please subscribe. The goal is to get to our 1,000 subscriber mark by the end of the weekend. If you haven't already, please do that. And of course, you can find this podcast wherever you get your podcast 5 days a week. And it's completely free for your listening pleasure. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. We will be back at it again on Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, everybody.